that it's the beginning of the franchise tag period. Now, last year, we saw the Jaguars franchise tag Cam Robinson. They did eventually work out a long-term deal with Cam, but now we have two players that we could keep our eyes on that are kind of big-time free agents that the Jaguars would like to keep here in Jacksonville that could be franchise tag candidates. Let's start off with Juwan Taylor because he's that other offensive tackle. He's a guy the Jaguars drafted, and we always talk so much about the Jaguars needing to keep their young, talented players. It might be a difficult task to come to a long-term deal with him quickly, maybe, because he did have such a good season just this last year.
I think Juwan Taylor, Jamal, is going to be the hardest one to keep. I think of everybody they've got, he's a tackle, and he's a good tackle. Now, he's always been a right tackle, but he was so good, it just takes one team to maybe give him left tackle money, and then he may be gone. He's a really good player, but I like the fact they're going to try and sign him. The bottom line is this. They have not done a good job over the years of getting guys to a second contract. So I think they want to send the message that we are going to keep guys for a second contract. We're going to get our guys to a second contract, which is why this one's important. They're going to try really hard to sign him. I don't sense that they would franchise him, but I do think they're going to try all they can, as hard as they can, to sign Juwan Taylor. Juwan's a good player, and I think if you can keep him, that's a good thing.
The hard part about franchise tagging possibly Juwan Taylor is that tackle money because it's one position. It's considered left and right as just tackle. So that franchise tag for that tackle spot, very expensive. A guy that is maybe a prime candidate if they can't work out that long-term deal is Evan Ingram. He's not a guy that the Jaguars drafted, but he's a guy that they definitely want to keep. They brought him here on a one-year prove-it deal. If you watched the Jaguars last year, you know just how good Evan Ingram was for them. Rewrote the franchise record for tight ends, for catches, for receiving yards in a single season. So definitely a big season. You want to keep Evan Ingram. The franchise tag is definitely a possibility if they can't work out that multi-year deal.
Yeah, no question. He's a guy, they don't want to franchise anybody. They want to get that multi-year deal done. And Evan Ingram shined in so many ways. Number one, he's a good player. He's a good receiver. He's a better blocker than anybody realized. That was a plus. He's great in the community. He's a hard worker. He's the first guy out there doing those ball drills he does. He is such a good part of this team, so they do not want to lose Evan Ingram. They would rather not franchise him, but he's a guy I could see on the franchise tag. You could tag him either for the full year, or you could tag him until you can get a deal done like they did with Cam Robinson, which you mentioned earlier. You got to have Evan Ingram on this team. Somehow, some way, I'm convinced Evan Ingram will be a Jaguar. You cannot let him get away.
Right, and the reason he's a prime candidate for that franchise tag, the tight end number is very reasonable. We saw multiple teams use that just a year ago to make sure they could keep their guys at least for another season. So Evan Ingram should still be in Jacksonville. I think we should call that one of the goals of the offseason for the Jaguars.